Good afternoon, everyone.
Gary.
Yeah.
On behalf of AWS, I want to thank you all for coming. My name is Marc Aldrich, and I'm the General Manager for the Media and Entertainment business here at AWS. And I have the pleasure of kicking off this very exciting session for virtual content production in the cloud. But before I do that, I thought I'd take a minute and talk about AWS for M&E. What is AWS for M&E? AWS for M&E is a set of, we have the most comprehensive set of capabilities, including 8 services, 14 solutions, dedicated appliances, and 400 ISV partners across the globe to help our customers and partners reinvent and innovate in the M&E space. Whether you're a sports league like the NFL, or a streamer like Disney Plus or Netflix, a publication like the Wall Street Journal, or a content studio like Wētā FX, working on the next blockbuster movie, we have all of the services to enable our customers to deliver and delight their customers. We've taken a special interest and focus on bringing people from the industry who have deep subject matter expertise in the areas that I talked about. Content production, media supply chain and archive, direct-to-consumer and streaming, broadcast, and data science and analytics. These areas are the areas that we're innovating in and working with our customers on to make sure that they're delivering value for their customers. For those folks who didn't know that we were involved in this space with M&E so much, I hope that you get a little something out of this roundtable discussion, because we spent a lot of time working behind the camera to help our customers tell the stories and continue to create and delight their audiences, whether it's a full-form movie or it's a live production, sports production. So I'd like to introduce Gretchen Libby, who leads our visual compute team, to kick us off. Gretchen?
Thank you, Marc. Great introduction. Thank you. So, Gretchen Libby, I joined AWS 2 years ago after 24 years at Industrial Light and Magic, which is a division of Lucasfilm. And I worked on blockbuster franchise productions like Star Wars and Transformers and Jurassic and Avengers, which suits me well to come to AWS and assist our customers that have the same business models. I'm also a member of the Academy of Motion Pictures and Sciences, and we have an additional 6 people on our team that are also AMPUS Academy members. And to Marc's point about industry veterans and knowledge, I think it's really important in the media and entertainment industry, who are creating art, essentially, in many ways, to have that trust with the people at AWS who know what their experiences are and what they're up against. So we're very excited tonight. I'm really excited to have Jon Landau here. Jon Landau is the Oscar-winning producer of 2 of the top 3 grossing films of all time, numbers 1 and 3 to be particular, Titanic and Avatar, as well as the upcoming Avatar: The Way of Water. David Conley to my left. Yes. Yes. David Conley is the Executive VFX producer at Wētā. We discovered the other night that we've known each other probably 20 years.
20 years.
Which is amazing. And David has an extensive and impressive film credits list himself, and actually worked on the second top grossing film of all time, Avengers: Endgame. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then my colleague from AWS, Nina Walsh, she's the Media and Entertainment Business Development Leader for Australia and New Zealand. And she has over 15 years of industry experience, having worked in Vancouver and Australia, and we're really lucky to have her as part of our team. Today we had hoped to be able to share some details about the technical innovations that we achieved in partnership with Wētā FX on the film, but because of the timing, we'll have to wait for all the details after the film is released. In the meantime, let's hear from our panelists as we discuss emerging tech trends in the entertainment industry. And so, to dive right in, David, can you give us a little bit of a history of Wētā FX?
Well, I'd like to start off by saying that I joined the team about 9 years ago, but 30 years ago, Peter Jackson decided to create Wētā FX, or Wētā Digital at the time, in order to service the creation of Lord of the Rings, the trilogy that has been part of filmmaking lore for these past 3 decades. During the production of Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, a character was created by the name of Gollum. That visual effects supervisor, Joe Letteri, created this character that was so convincing and so real that he convinced a certain filmmaker by the name of Jim Cameron to move forward with a project called Avatar. And that is where the relationship between Jon Landau, Jim Cameron, and Wētā FX started. That journey has been an integral part of Wētā FX. And the partnership with Jon and Jim has been integral in helping us elevate our own filmmaking standards and pushing the boundaries of technology across filmmaking. I would say that the time between Avatar 2 and Avatar 3, or Avatar 1 and Avatar 2, rather, I'm thinking about Avatar 3 already, so don't,
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert, yes. But I think that the partnership in the last, for me, my first meeting on Avatar was in 2013. That's how long we've been thinking about this. But Jon and Jim have made a fantastic cinematic experience, and they've elevated the technical requirements to deliver this project and pushed us to the edges of what compute can deliver. And in doing that, in making that, this is why we're here today. It's not just Jon and Jim's creative elevation of the project. It's a fact that we got to a point where the requirements of rendering this movie got to a place where we needed to partner with Nina's team at AWS. So that has been a huge transition in the history of Wētā FX, because we've had one of the largest data centers to render all the movies that we've been making over the last 6 years, 7 years, that we do about 10 to 15 a year. But Avatar 2 has been the largest. And so, and the eve of the 30th anniversary of Wētā FX, we're about to showcase the cinematic experience that I call Avatar 2, and that is really helping bring to life Jon and Jim's vision for what I think is a truly remarkable and impressive project.
That's so exciting. I can't wait. Jon, I had the pleasure of working with you on Avatar 1, and we did a small section of the movie back at ILM, and so I understand what the high bar that James Cameron sets for quality. What is it about Wētā FX that makes you trust them so much as a partner to deliver a film like this?
To date is our experience with them. You know, we were unknown. We didn't know what the relationship would be like on the first Avatar, and they delivered. And what I love about the team that David has working with him is their focus is not on the tech. Their focus is on telling the narrative story, of putting emotional and engaging characters up there on the screen. But as David mentioned, we challenged them on this film. We challenged them by going from 24 frames to many shots at 48 frames per second. That right there, that doubles the render workload that they would need to accomplish. And then there's the complexity of the water and all of those simulations. And you know what you saw in the trailer is literally only a small sliver of the enormous task and challenge. And in the first movie, Gretchen, you'll remember, we really had most of our scenes with 2 characters. Yeah. It was Jake and Neytiri's story.
Yep.
Now we have 5, 10, 12 characters with hundreds of background extras that needed to be generated and rendered. And people get confused. They think the render is just in the finished shots. It's not. No. These shots, Wētā will have, I think they said they average 500 iterations on a given shot. All of those need to be rendered. One after the other, and David mentioned that we outgrew their capacity to do that on the ground. It's not just their capacity, we outgrew the power grid in Miramar. So we're very thankful for AWS and being able to lend its hand at really contributing to getting this movie made.
Excellent. Well, I understand there was a point at which I think you decided you weren't seeing quite as much as you had hoped. Talk about iterations. And then you, I guess, became aware of the cloud opportunity for Wētā. And how did you feel about that at the time?
Well, look, we had to learn about the cloud. As in the nascent stages of the cloud, we are very much about protecting our IP at all costs. And there were a lot of security questions. Where's it going to go? Who can access it? The idea that our whole movie is in the cloud, and David and his team really convinced us that everything that AWS had set up and how secure it was, and that really that was the path to opening, no pun intended, the floodgates to allow us to get back the amount of work we needed to make our release date. And, that has been very successful. And look, there was a learning curve at the beginning for everybody to understand how to feed the machine. And once we got there, the throughput transformed. And we were able to, even in the later stages of the film, when we were working on some of the later shots, turn around iterations that have just upped the ante on everything. So we are very grateful. But at first, when we first started hearing about it, we were a little skeptical.
Well, someone who went along the journey the whole way was Nina and her team in Australia and New Zealand. Nina, tell us about how that went for you.
Yeah, look, for me, it was really exciting. I joined AWS in November of 2020, so similar to Gretchen, 2 years in. And for me, coming on board and being told that one of my clients was going to be Wētā FX, I was very happy. I'm an ex-industry person myself, but being able to get in there and really work with the team, not as a competitor or another studio, but as a partner to Wētā FX has been really exciting. And for our team, it has been a journey, but it is with all of our customers, and every journey takes, a unique amount of time because you have unique challenges as you work through the process. And so it's been wild at times, but it's been, it's been awesome to be able to really partner together, look at the long-term goals, but whilst also addressing those short-term fires that we needed to put out. So it's been a huge team effort from our side, all of our product and service teams, all of our specialist knowledge within media and entertainment, visual effects. It's been a company-wide effort, not just us down in Wellington, but for us having a team locally in New Zealand and in Wellington as well has been a key part of that.
Excellent.
Can I just jump in for one second? I think, a couple things. You talk about the long term. I think, again, I look at these movies as opening a crack in a door. We've opened the door of the possibility of what the cloud can really do. Because it's about the people. It's about having the relationships who understand what we're doing. It's not just about the technology. It's not just about what exists there. It's about having people that you can work with to achieve your goals. And I applaud AWS for making the decisions of the hires they made with people who have a background in what we do.
You're right, and there's a funny story. We would ask David, for estimates of how much compute power was needed, and knowing, he'd give us estimates, weekly estimates, but then at some point it was like, we have to quadruple that, just in case, right? Yeah. Because we came from the industry. So, well, this is a good time to ask, David, how did the partnership with AWS begin? What were your business drivers, and tell us where it all began.
I would say that our relationship and our partnership started with a phone call from Jon, who said, we need to see more. It was it. That's all he said, and I said, okay, how am I going to do this? So it is important to understand that the artistry required for a project like this is wholly dependent on large amounts of teams coming together and providing a lot of different iterations and solutions to the filmmakers. And that does require an enormous amount of compute power. And 2.5 years ago, we started, obviously, engaging with the macro problem that became the global pandemic. And in looking at that, we started to realize that our ability to leverage what makes us successful and sort of leverage what is our sort of guiding principle philosophy, which is to give the filmmakers as much as we possibly can and help problem solve and iterate as much as possible. We never want to limit filmmakers' desire to create something new. So how do you do that in the landscape of a pandemic when, as Jon mentioned, we were exceeding the bandwidth of power available to us in Miramar? We couldn't architecturally expand our data center because that would require infrastructure that would go to the city council, and we all know what it's like to deal with local governments. You forget about it, we weren't going to get that problem solved. So the only way I could do this was to sort of partner with Nina's team at AWS. And Jon mentioned something that's very important to me. I said, the only way this really works is that if we protect the IP. There's a technical solution, of course, but to me, the most important part was protecting the IP that is this movie. Disney puts a stringent content security protocol on our facility. There's no doubt about that, but that pales in comparison to what Jon and Jim put on us, because they rightfully have one of the most amazing projects that is about to be released to audiences worldwide. And I knew that a single frame of this getting out at the wrong time would be devastating not only to Wētā FX, but devastating to the IP and to the project at hand. So turning to Nina 2.5 years ago, there was a roadmap where we started to set out and we say, okay, what does success look like? What does this mean? So we had 2 years to try and come up with a roadmap. The problem is none of us had ever done it. And AWS didn't understand our business, and we didn't understand theirs. And we also had, culturally, we had some internal cultural changes to make too. We had a lot of proponents who were technicians and engineers who said, let's get into the cloud. And we also had some people who were like, whoa, slow down. Don't mess with what works. But with Nina's team, we spent 14 months. We literally had to put pencils down on one of my pet projects called multi-site, using a cloud-based system to connect different types of sites around the globe and to focus on cloud-based rendering. Her teams partnered with our teams. It took about 14 months, and the first images that we got back, so literally like sort of seeing the first images from the moon. It was just like, oh wow, that we can do this. Yeah. We were there, right? Yeah. And but then the problem was, great, that's one frame. Yeah. I need 3 hours worth of content for Jon and Jim at 24, 48 stereo, and 4K, 8K. There's just all kinds of formats and deliverables. How do you do that? How do you even project for that? How do you forecast it? How do you say, oh yeah, this particular frame is going to cost this amount of compute time? None of us had ever done this before. None of us knew how to do this. So with our teams who partnered with AWS's team, it took about 14 months to get the first frame. And then 8 months to deliver, I want to say 3.3 billion thread hours worth of content in the span of 8 months. Billion.
Yeah, just say that again, David.
Say it again. Say it again.
3.3 billion thread hours. That's how much we used in the cloud. It's a massive undertaking. And every time we started, well, we'll start with a little bit. No, double that. Yeah. No,
we
quadruple that.
Gretchen and I were like, he's going to triple it.
Yeah.
He's going to quadruple it. Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
And he did. And he did. And expanded regions too.
We expanded regions. We used all of Australia, I'd like to say. We were on the West Coast. We had Singapore on standby. Yeah. And we also had the tried-true method. Sorry to say this, but we had PAs on standby with little drives to get on airplanes if we needed to.
Just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah.
But.
So Jon, it's a good time to ask, how much of this was actually visible to you? Or was it really just like, I've got more iterations, Jim is happy, we're getting this movie done? Like, did the cloud come up in daily conversations?
Look, the cloud came up with me and Lena Scanlon, David's producer on the project, and David. There was a tangible difference when this kicked in. And, I think when we talk, it's hard to put it in context. David talks about thread hours. I'll just tell you from our perspective, there were shots that were so complex, and I'm talking about a 4-second shot, not an hour-long shot, that would take 2 weeks to render. and we'd be waiting there, for it. And there were times earlier on where it would take even longer to get something back. So we needed to create an efficiency that allowed us to get through 3,300 shots in this movie. And as David said, it's in 3D. So you have to render a left eye, you have to render a right eye. 40+% are generated at 48 frames per second. So the task was daunting. And the difference when we went to the cloud was truly palpable. And we would not have finished but for the support we got from AWS.
I like that.
Very true.
I like that quote. Nina, talk to us about your experience.
Gretchen, did I say it the way you told me to say it?
Thank you, John. I wasn't sure if he was going to say it at all. Nina, tell us about your experience where you sat and, on the day-to-day and, watching Wētā, achieve more and more success.
Yeah, look, I think communication is key in these situations, not just on our side, but also on the Wētā side. And I think that was something that really drove the progress that we were able to make, is ensuring that everybody was as on the same page as they could be at any given time. On our side, it was myself and Jono and Viral and the team pulling in specialists from all corners of the globe, Mike in London, the EC2 team in Seattle, and the storage team as well, and then working with the Wētā team on the ground to put the two ends together. Oftentimes it's our customers highlighting a challenge that they have, and then us figuring out how we can help them solve that.
Right.
And so it really was like in the trenches, learning. Each and every day was different, and I think. That's what we love about these types of engagements. Is it's a partnership, and you go through all of that together, and ideally you come out with something great, which we certainly have. And the journey's just beginning. We have not. We're just getting started. We are 2 years in, but we've learned so much in that time, and so I'm looking forward to 2.0.
That's an important part here. I mean, the exigencies of us having to problem solve to get the filmmakers what they needed really sparked us to sort of put together a solution that had been unprecedented and unparalleled in filmmaking history. The next journey, and this is the one that I'm more excited about, which is now we can actually take a step back and say, right, what are we going to do for the next movie? How are we going to make sure that we plan for that, and so that it's a coordinated effort? Because from my perspective, I want to be able to give John and Jim more iterations, more compute capacity, and more ability to see the movie before as the movie's being made. And that's an important part. This next step is the critical part.
Well, and you're expanding operations globally, too. So that'll be another element, another factor to add to the mix.
My multi-site.
So, and I remember when John, we did first Avatar, John rounded the globe, getting 3D in theaters so that you could release that movie in stereo. It must be a very similar challenge now with all the formats.
We've had the chance. Look, the industry and the exhibition community has faced a really tough couple of years with COVID, and they became slack. And we've been pushing them. I started touring the globe again a year ago, November, showcasing some of the incredible work that Wētā FX had been doing to say, guys, get on board.
Right.
You need to upgrade what we're presenting, because we need to drive people out of their homes and give them a reason to go out.
Well, listen, I think it's a good time to showcase, and talk about the evolution of production and the cloud. And we at AWS and with Wētā look at that, in what we call a pan-Amazon way. Nina, do you want to talk about the benefits to the studios and customers alike?
Yeah, look, I think for us, as we've touched on, we're bringing in specialists to the business, but we're also looking externally to our partners and to our industry organisations like Movie Labs to then work together on what it is our customers need. So trying to preempt what it is they need, but then also taking on board their feedback in the development of our products and services. But it is a team effort for sure, and there's specialisations that our partners bring to us that we don't need to develop it ourselves. We just leverage their expertise. And so for us, it's really being in the community itself, and then also with our customers, and then developing things like Color in the Cloud, and pushing that envelope to show customers what's possible, so that then they can come along and try new ways of working in order to, as you said, David, raise that level of output of what you can do.
Yeah, and I think, David, there's looking forward a little bit, all kinds of areas in which you might want to use AWS in the future. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like live action production to the,
Absolutely. I mean, this is this is obviously inspired a lot on the efforts of what Jon and Jim had established from a virtual production pipeline that connected Los Angeles with Wētā, and this idea of having two sort of facilities talk to each other. Marrying that and sort of working a little bit more closely with the concept of how do we make movies at a global scale with teams across the globe. No disrespect intended to all you virtual production enthusiasts out there about shooting inside of LED panel volumes. I think that's an exciting tool, but for me, I'd rather see what filmmakers can do on the outside. I like to see what they can do in parts of the world that have never been seen before. But how do you connect filmmakers who work on sets and locations that we've never seen before, using stages and LED panels and performance capture systems? How do we bring all of that data into an architecture in a combined way that then connects post-production with distribution, with rendering? How do we get all those constituent parts of filmmaking into a place where we can work on that from what I call multi-site zones, and make a movie that can tap into the artists and the people that we require to help make these movies? As Jon said earlier in the piece here, I think the thing that we should never lose sight of, it is the people, it's the artists, it's the partnerships. Technology is just a tool that gets us there, but all of us, how we work together and using those tools is what gives us the confidence to deliver on making a movie, in our case, movie and content creation, because I'm interested in all kinds of content creation. But that confidence comes from partnering people around the world in areas that we wouldn't have access to if we had to fly everybody into New Zealand and have them live in the Miramar region, or the greater Wellington region. But now we get to partner with people in London and in Vancouver and in Africa and in Mongolia and Turkey. We can bring all of this expertise together through cloud-based infrastructure, from inception, from writing, creating a script, all the way to shooting, and using that metadata that's captured on set to deliver final visual effects. That's what's exciting for me. Those are the next steps. And when we talk about what are our next steps with AWS, those are we're paving the future as opposed to reacting. And that's what's exciting for me.
Jon, what's your opinion here? There's major challenges, and how can we help?
Hopefully it becomes more cost effective.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that's one of the factors. And that's one of the things we've tried to do with the technologies we've created on virtual production, is to try and make them as ubiquitous as possible. Feeling that the more people who use those, the more people who be trained in using those, the more efficient the process will become when we come to tackle, our movies. I think, this experience here has really shown us that we can work in the cloud. We can work there securely, and it gives us a lot of flexibility. We also want to expand what we're doing. We don't want to just be doing one movie every X number of years. Right. We have other IPs that we want to be able to do, and we want to be able to work in a workspace that is connected, where not everybody has to be in the same locale, that they're sharing resources in the sky that allow us to do things and tell stories that we could not have told otherwise.
And I think that's exactly what AWS wants to focus on, is enabling content creators to focus on the storytelling, and as Jon and David have said, the artists and the creators, and not having to worry as much about the infrastructure beneath it, right? And having that available at their fingertips. David, I want to ask you, what has been the impact on the people at Wētā? Let's talk about people, on the jobs or on the cost for you, and the effect it might have had on time in production. It's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question. No, let's talk about the human interest side of the story,
Sure.
because that's always the hardest part for me, which is that we've now opened Pandora's box, no pun intended, to allow artists to work outside of the facility, which means that nobody wants to come back into the office and hang out with us while management has breakfast with them. No, I'm just kidding. What we've done here is create a system that allows us to be able to expand the physical constraints, the capacity constraints that we once had. This is an exciting place to be because it gives us the flexibility to be able to sort of move beyond what are traditional borders that restrict us in the post-production space, and getting people to be able to work in hybrid areas and hybrid solutions, whether at home in their environment and coming into the facility or from across different countries, gives us an incredible amount of creative flexibility and really allows us to tap into the best of what an artist can do. No artist works in a traditional manner. We have night owls, we have people who come in on Tuesdays they said they have to wear their pink ears. They just do a lot of different things to bring creativity to the process. And restricting them by saying you come in 9 to 5 inside of a brick and mortar, it's always a very hard challenge. But that is necessary from a content security protocol perspective, right? We have to ask people to come in and work inside the confines of a building. But we're now, thanks to a lot of the content security that AWS offers us, we have a certain liberation, and people enjoy that, and they feel that they work better, they feel that they're more efficient, they feel that they can contribute more to the process if they can spend time thinking about a problem and problem solving in a different environment, and that is helps us deliver on the promise that we like to make to filmmakers, which is go make your movie, we'll try and figure out how to deliver it, and let you think about the creative solutions that you need to do to make the best movie possible, and we'll arrive at the technical solutions to get there. And we often require the partnership with companies like AWS and the intelligence of the engineering teams to work together to solve these problems so that Jon and Jim and other filmmakers can enjoy the benefits of the creative side of what Wētā can deliver. But
That's perfect. I think I'm getting the timing is up here today. So this has been an amazing panel. We've been so blessed and honored to have you here, Jon, given your schedule, and really appreciate that. Nina, David, thank you so much. And we hope, I know Jon can't join us, but hopefully some of you can join us next door for cocktails and more conversation. Thank you very much.
Great seeing you, Gretchen.
Thank you.